I kept my eyes shut. Not because I was tired. God knows I hadn't slept properly in weeks. But because I wanted to hear what she'd say when she thought I was gone. It was 6:12 a.m. I heard her bare feet shuffle across the carpet, slow and deliberate. My back was to her, and I could feel the weight of her stare pressing into me from the doorway. The bedroom felt colder than usual, like the warmth had been drained from it slowly, night after night, word by word, silence by silence. And then she whispered it. He won't even notice I'm gone. I almost opened my eyes. Almost. But I didn't. I stayed still, my breathing shallow, my chest tight, my brain trying to convince my heart that maybe she meant something else. Maybe she was talking about going to the store. Maybe she was just venting. Maybe. Then came the zipper. That long, quiet zip of her duffel bag. It sounded like a scream. She'd packed it the night before, didn't think I saw her sneak it into the coat closet. But I did. I saw everything. I just kept pretending not to. Because that's what I do. I pretend. She took a deep breath. That same fake calming breath she always did before job interviews or after texting someone she shouldn't. Then she walked out. No kiss. No note. Just the creak of the front door and the sound of her car starting in the driveway. Still, I didn't move. My alarm went off 7 minutes later. I reached over and shut it off like it was a normal day. Like I hadn't just heard my wife, whisper her exit plan like I was furniture. Like I wasn't a real person lying 2 feet from her with ears and a heart and a soul she used to care about. I sat up and looked around the room. Her side of the closet was half empty. Gone were the boots she said she never wore anymore. Gone was the red scarf she claimed was in storage. Gone was the tiny blue travel case she took every time she visited her sister. I should have been angry. Should have thrown something, screamed, done anything. But instead, I stood there like a man made of cardboard. Hollow. Light. Breakable. I went downstairs. The coffee pot was still warm. She had made coffee. I stared at the 2 mugs sitting side by side, steam curling lazily into the air like nothing had changed. One mug had lipstick on the rim. She didn't even take it with her. I sat down at the table and drank it anyway. Bitter. Burned. Empty. Just like me. And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened her laptop. I know. I shouldn't have. I've always respected privacy. I believed in trust. But this wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a performance. And I'd been the fool clapping in the front row, hoping the show wasn't really over. Her password hadn't changed. And the first message that popped up, it wasn't from her sister. It was from someone named Elliot. The preview read, "Are you sure he won't follow you? I'm still nervous about what you said last night." That was the moment I stopped pretending. Next time, I'll tell you what I found inside the draft folder. Because that's when everything unraveled. And I realized, she didn't just plan to leave me. She planned to erase me. I don't know what I expected when I clicked into her email. Maybe receipts, maybe an itinerary, maybe some harmless messages that would make me feel guilty for doubting her. But what I found instead wasn't an affair in progress. It was one being documented like a memoir. 6 drafts, all titled with nothing but dates. No subjects, just timestamps. One from 3 weeks ago, one from 6 months ago. The earliest one dated back to last year, our anniversary weekend, if you can believe that. The one where we stayed in that ridiculous cabin with no heat and laughed ourselves breathless, trying to cook over a fire pit. I thought it had been magic. I didn't know she was writing about leaving me between wine glasses and marshmallows. I opened the most recent one first. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to retype the password twice just to unlock the screen again after it locked from inactivity. Inside the email, it wasn't addressed to anyone. Just her words. Like a journal entry with no conscience. He didn't even notice I dyed my hair back. I could have walked in with a shaved head, and he'd have probably just asked if I wanted tea. I don't hate him. I just don't feel seen. I don't feel wanted. Elliot listens when I talk. He looks at me like I matter. I sat there staring at the word wanted until it blurred. I thought I was showing love by giving her space, by making things easy. I thought my calmness was what kept us stable. I thought being the quiet, dependable one was a strength. But now I saw it through her eyes. My gentleness had become invisibility. My reliability, to her, felt like indifference. I kept reading. I know he's not cruel. That's the problem. If he were cruel, I could justify it. But he's just there. Like background noise. I don't want to resent him. But I do. I do. And it makes me feel like a monster. She wasn't a monster. I mean, not then. Not in that moment. She was just someone who fell out of love, slowly, over time, and didn't know how to say it aloud. And I had made it easy for her to drift, hadn't I? I didn't ask questions. I accepted the silences. I didn't notice when the laughter stopped being real. I opened another draft. Elliot asked if I'm serious about leaving. I told him I was, but I haven't even packed my things yet. Just a few clothes. Brian's still sleeping when I sneak out. It's like he's frozen in time. He never changes. He never sees. That was written 5 days ago. The next one mentioned something I hadn't expected at all. I told Elliot about the money. I hate myself for saying it, but if Brian never checks the joint account, it'll make everything simpler. I can't start over with nothing. Elliot said he'd help, but I've done enough waiting. I need to act. The blood drained from my face. The joint account. I hadn't checked it in months. She always handled the bills. I let her. I thought it made her feel empowered. Independent. God, I didn't even know how much was in it now. Suddenly, I was scrambling for my phone. Opened the banking app. Typed in the code. Waited for it to load. When it did, I couldn't breathe. Our savings account was nearly empty. For transfers over the past 2 weeks. All labeled business consulting. I didn't recognize the company name. I doubt it was even real. Over $42,000 gone. She didn't just leave me emotionally. She was halfway through disappearing completely, with my support. With my ignorance. I should have felt rage, but I didn't. Not then. Just this sickening blend of heartbreak and humiliation. Like I had volunteered to be betrayed and even offered the pen to help sign the betrayal into record. I stood up. My body was moving, but I didn't know what I was doing. I walked to the hallway closet. The coat she always wore on girls' nights wasn't there. Neither were her heeled boots, the ones she said hurt too much to wear anymore. The lies weren't even covered up. They were right out in the open. I had just been too hopeful, too cowardly, to look for them. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cry. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pillow she hadn't touched, and asked the ceiling what I'd done so wrong that my own wife could plan her exit with military precision while I made her oatmeal and refilled her car's windshield fluid. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what I did next. Because I found a receipt in the trash that led me to a coffee shop I'd never been to before, and who I saw there made everything real in a way no draft ever could. I found the receipt while taking out the trash. It was crumpled, jammed between a banana peel and a cereal box flap, like it had been shoved into the bag at the last second. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but I wasn't most people anymore. I had become someone else entirely in the past 24 hours. Suspicion had rewired my brain. I saw everything now. It was from a coffee shop I'd never heard of before. The Garden Grind, cute name. Not in our neighborhood. Not even in our part of town. It was across the river, tucked into the strip of stores near the train station. Date and time stamped clearly. 2 days ago, 3:36 p.m. A caramel macchiato, a hibiscus tea, and a slice of lemon raspberry cake. 2 drinks. 1 dessert. Not a solo coffee run. I don't know what got into me, but I grabbed my keys, still wearing socks, and drove straight there. I didn't think about work or meetings or whether I locked the front door. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to see. When I pulled into the parking lot, my hands started shaking. The place was almost too perfect. Ivy growing across the awning, little white tables outside, each with a mason jar full of fresh lavender. It wasn't her style. That's what scared me. She never came here because she liked the atmosphere. She came here because no one would recognize her. I parked across the lot and waited. I told myself I wouldn't go in. I'd just observe. But 20 minutes passed, then 30. Nothing. Just strangers. Mothers with strollers. Students. Nobody familiar. I was about to leave when a silver car pulled in, a sedan I didn't recognize. She got out. Mabel. She looked completely at ease. Hair loose, no makeup, sunglasses pushed onto her head. She wasn't dressed for work. She was dressed for comfort. For charm. For him. He followed her out of the passenger side. And it wasn't Elliot. He was older. Graying beard, nice watch, dark leather jacket that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. She laughed at something he said and brushed her hair back, the same way she used to when we first dated. They sat outside. I don't know how long I stood there, behind my windshield, gripping the steering wheel like it was a lifeline. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Her body language said it all. Leaning in, smiling with her eyes. biting her lower lip when he spoke. I'd seen her do that with me a lifetime ago. A reflex. A signal. It had always meant desire. The man leaned across the table and handed her something. I squinted. It was a brochure. She unfolded it, and her face lit up. I watched her point to something inside it and mouth the words, "That one." He nodded. Then he reached over and touched her cheek. That was the moment my stomach turned. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. This was a plan. A future. I backed the car out slowly. I didn't want her to see me. Not yet. Not like that, frozen, devastated, wild-eyed in a parking lot while she daydreamed about beachfront cottages or whatever was on that damn pamphlet. I didn't go home. I drove aimlessly for over 2 hours. I passed the grocery store where we used to shop on Sundays. The old theater where we had our second date. The park where she once cried into my chest when her mother passed away. Every corner of our life together felt like a place I no longer belonged to. Like I was haunting my own memories. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was low, and I felt like I'd aged a decade in one afternoon. She was already home, sitting on the couch, reading, calm, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just played house with another man in a little cafe with lavender jars on the table. "Hey," she said. "You're home early." "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely audible. I walked past her, straight upstairs, straight into the bathroom, and I threw up. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what happened that night, because I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked her one simple question, and her answer, it didn't just confirm everything. It wrecked me. I didn't plan on saying anything that night. I really didn't. I'd rehearsed a dozen possible confrontations during my drive, big dramatic speeches, quiet accusations, even just tossing the brochure on the kitchen counter and walking out. But when I got home and saw her sitting there like she hadn't spent the afternoon with a man whose name I still didn't know, something inside me collapsed. So I stayed silent. Until we were both in bed. That's when it happened. The question. She was scrolling through her phone, back turned to me, her face softly lit by the screen. I could see her thumb idly moving in little circles, like she wasn't even absorbing what she was looking at. Her breathing was calm. Mine wasn't. I couldn't take it anymore. "Are you in love with him?" There was no rage in my voice. No accusation. Just a tired kind of surrender. The kind of question you only ask when you already know the answer and still hope to be proven wrong. She didn't respond right away. Didn't gasp or flinch or pretend she didn't know what I was talking about. Instead, she slowly set her phone down on the nightstand, folded her hands over her stomach, and stared at the ceiling. Then, in the quietest, most terrifying voice I've ever heard from her, she said, "I don't know if I've ever really been in love with anyone." That knocked the air clean out of me. What do you even say to that? What could possibly follow a statement like that? She went on before I could speak. "I think I like the idea of love. I like being taken care of. I liked feeling needed. But when the excitement fades and the comfort settles in, I just feel like I'm watching my life from the outside." I sat up in bed. I couldn't lie there anymore, not after that. I stared at her, waiting for a sign that she was finished, or that she might take it back, or at the very least that she'd look at me. But she didn't. She kept staring at the ceiling like the answer was written somewhere above us. "So what was all of this then?" I asked. "The house, the holidays, the late-night drives to your dad's hospital, the stupid crossword puzzles on Sunday mornings. What was that?" She finally turned her head toward me. Her eyes weren't cold. They weren't even angry. They were empty. "It was real," she said, "but not deep." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and ask how she could call 12 years of my life not deep. But I didn't. I just nodded. Because deep down, I think I had known it too. Maybe not in those words. But I'd felt the disconnect growing like mold between us, and I just kept telling myself it was normal. That everyone hits rough patches. That the lack of spark was due to stress or age or routine. But she had already moved on from the idea of us. Maybe months ago. Maybe years. And now I was just the last person to get the memo. I stood up, left the room, and sat in the hallway for a while with the lights off. I could hear her shifting in bed, pulling the covers higher like she'd just finished a conversation about the weather. I felt like a ghost outside his own bedroom. It's a surreal thing, realizing you were never truly seen by the person you built your whole world around. Like discovering you were just a soft background hum in someone else's life. I spent the night on the couch, fully dressed, phone in hand, trying to find something, anything to ground me. A photo, a message, a moment of clarity. But all I found were fragments. Birthday pictures where I was cropped out. A vacation selfie she never posted. A playlist she'd made called Drive Time that had songs I didn't recognize, all upbeat and fast and definitely not her usual style. At 3:14 a.m., I got an email notification. It was from our lawyer. Our lawyer. Subject: Review of Temporary Separation Agreement, Draft 1. I didn't even know she had contacted him. I hadn't signed anything. We hadn't talked about lawyers. We hadn't even used the word separation out loud. But here it was. A draft. Ready to go. She was already halfway through leaving before I'd even asked the first real question. Next time, I'll tell you what I did with that draft, because I didn't sign it. And I didn't burn it either. What I did instead changed everything. I didn't open the email right away. I stared at it for a while, letting the weight of the subject line settle over me like a suffocating blanket. Temporary Separation Agreement, Draft 1. As if it were just another harmless document. Like a form to confirm new Wi-Fi service. But every word in that title sounded like a shovel hitting my own grave. Eventually, I clicked it. The message was short and sterile. Just a line from our lawyer, someone we used once, years ago, to handle some inheritance paperwork. I guess she'd gone back to him because it wouldn't raise suspicion. And she was right. It hadn't. Not until now. The draft was attached. It wasn't long. 4 pages. Bullet points. Cool, objective language. Everything was temporary, amicable, mutually agreed upon. No mention of betrayal. No mention of the man at the cafe or the tens of thousands missing from our account. Just clauses about who'd stay in the house, how long she'd have to remove her things, and the vague promise that during this period, both parties agreed to remain respectful and non-disruptive. It was like reading the blueprint of my erasure. But tucked at the bottom, in small italic text, was something different. A note, maybe not meant for me. A soft whisper inside all the formal noise. Brian, I know this feels sudden, but please understand, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to figure out who I am without you. That sentence hit harder than the rest of the document combined. Because she was right. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She had already left me. The hurt was just a byproduct. A side effect. I wasn't the target. I was just in the blast radius of her self-discovery. I closed the laptop. I didn't sleep that night either. I wandered around the house like a ghost again, touching picture frames, opening drawers, listening to the creaks in the floor that had always been part of our life together. Every corner held a memory that felt suddenly misplaced. But the real shock came the next morning. She wasn't home. At first, I thought she had just left early, maybe headed to work. But her car was still in the driveway. Her phone was gone. Her laptop. And the coat she wore to coffee dates. I checked the hallway closet. Another bag was missing. I waited for an hour. 2. I texted her. Are you okay? No reply. By noon, I found her laptop charger still on the desk. She never forgot that charger. She was obsessive about battery life, which meant she hadn't planned to be gone long. Or, she didn't want me to know she'd gone at all. I don't know what made me open the safe in the bedroom closet. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was desperation. I hadn't touched it in years. It's where we stored old files, passports, insurance papers, things we only needed when life went sideways. The combination was still the same. Her birthday. Inside, everything looked untouched. Except for one folder, one I didn't recognize. A plain manila folder labeled with a single word in pen, after. My hands were sweating before I even opened it. Inside was a printed itinerary. Hotel bookings. A car rental receipt. A folder from a real estate agent in a coastal town I'd never heard of. And at the bottom, a checklist. A real, typed checklist. With boxes. Transfer remaining funds. Speak to Clarissa for cover story. Forward mail, temp PO. Leave envelope on kitchen table. Pick up Elliot at 5:20. Don't be late. Turn off location sharing. Do not cry in front of him. The last box was handwritten, as if she'd only added it recently. I sat down on the edge of the bed and read that checklist 5 times. I couldn't make sense of how clinical it was. How complete. She had planned every detail of her escape like a heist movie. Except the only thing she was stealing was the future I thought we had. There was no note on the kitchen table. Not yet. But if she had followed the rest of that plan, I knew she'd be back. Just to complete the routine. Drop the envelope. Say goodbye without saying anything. I had a decision to make. I could wait and let her finish this story the way she wanted. Or, I could rewrite the ending before she got the chance. Next part, I'll tell you what I did before she returned home. Because I left her something too. And what she found when she walked in wasn't the envelope she expected. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't touch her things or break a single plate. I just sat in the kitchen with a pen in my hand, staring at a blank sheet of paper like it might somehow write the right words for me. But there were no right words. Just truths. Ugly, quiet, unremarkable truths that had been buried under years of nodding and smiling and pretending not to notice the silence between us growing teeth. I didn't even know how to start. Dear Mabel felt wrong. Too formal. Mabel on its own felt bitter. So I skipped the salutation and just wrote, I know about Elliot. I know about the money. I know you were going to leave me before I even asked what was wrong. The words looked smaller than I expected. Less dramatic. Almost polite. I kept writing. I'm not writing this to stop you. I'm not even writing it to make you feel guilty. I need to say it. Out loud. One last time. Even if it's only on paper. I loved you. Even when you forgot how to look at me. Even when you laughed with your phone more than with me. Even when you started coming home with someone else's perfume on your coat and lies wrapped in soft voices. I still loved you. I think a part of me always will. But I can't be a ghost anymore. I can't wait in the hallway hoping for a voice that never calls my name. I don't know how long I sat there after I finished. The ink had smudged a little from my hand. I folded the letter and placed it on the table where she was supposed to leave hers. I didn't weigh it down with a coffee mug or flower vase. I wanted her to feel it when she picked it up, to wonder if maybe, for the first time in years, she didn't control the story anymore. Then I took her checklist, the one labeled after, and left it right beside my letter. But before I left the kitchen, I did something I hadn't planned. I turned her phone's location sharing back on. She didn't know I still had access to the family account settings from back when we shared calendars and grocery lists and playlists like normal couples. She probably assumed I never checked anymore. She wasn't wrong, until now. I wanted her to feel what it's like to be seen. To know, for once, that someone was watching her. Then I waited. Not in the house. I couldn't stay there. I drove to the old parking lot behind the community library, the place we used to sit during snowstorms with hot cocoa from that gas station that always overcharged. I sat in my car, cracked the window, and just watched the empty sidewalk like it owed me something. My heart felt like it was walking through a minefield. Any movement could have destroyed it. 2 hours later, the app pinged. She was home. I don't know what I thought I'd feel. Vindication? Relief? Closure? I felt none of that. Just this sharp ache in my chest, like someone had pressed a thumb into my sternum and refused to let go. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I drove back. Her car was parked crooked in the driveway. She always did that when she was rattled. I stepped inside. The kitchen lights were on. And there she was, standing in the middle of the room, her back to me, still holding the letter. Not reading it anymore. Just holding it. Like it had weight. When she finally turned around, I saw it. Her face wasn't angry or shocked. It was confused. Hurt, maybe. Or scared. But not the way someone looks when they're caught. The way someone looks when they realize they've been seen for the first time in a very, very long while. She opened her mouth to speak. But I didn't let her. I'm not staying, I said. And you don't have to explain. I think we both wrote enough already. She nodded. But her eyes were red. Her hand shook slightly, and she placed the letter down like it was made of glass. I never wanted to lie, she whispered. You just didn't want to tell the truth, I replied. And then I walked upstairs calmly, quietly, and picked up a duffel bag I'd packed earlier that afternoon. It didn't have much. Just a few clothes, a toothbrush, and a book I'd never finished reading. As I came back down, she was still there. She didn't try to stop me. She just asked, "Where will you go?" I shrugged. I don't know, but I need to be somewhere I'm not invisible. And with that, I walked out the front door. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because the very next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. And the voice on the other end wasn't Mabel's. It was Elliot. And what he said changed everything. When the unknown number lit up my screen the next morning, I almost let it ring out. I was sitting on the edge of a motel bed with a stale cup of coffee, watching morning talk shows with the sound off, trying to pretend that silence meant peace and not total emotional collapse. My phone buzzed again. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I thought it was Mabel. Maybe I thought it was the bank, or the lawyer, or just someone trying to sell me an extended car warranty, something normal. But the moment I heard the voice, everything inside me froze. Brian. It was male. Calm. Controlled. This is Elliot. I didn't respond. My lips parted, but nothing came out. I didn't even realize I was standing until I heard the creak of the floor beneath me. I'm not calling to start anything, he said, quickly. This isn't a confrontation. I think you deserve to know a few things. About Mabel. About what's actually going on. He paused, waiting for me to hang up. I didn't. I was too numb to do anything but listen. I didn't know she was married at first, he said. She told me she was getting divorced. That it had been going on for years. That you were cold and distant and barely spoke to her anymore. That you cheated on her twice. She made you sound like a shadow. The words hit like a slap. I believed her, he continued. And I shouldn't have. I should have asked more questions. But I was stupid. And flattered. And lonely. He sounded younger than I'd pictured. Maybe mid-30s. Polished. Like someone who had practiced this conversation in his head over and still wasn't sure if he should be having it. But then I saw the letter, he said. The one you left. I blinked. She showed it to you? No. She left it on the passenger seat of her car. I saw it when I got in. I wasn't supposed to, but I read it. That was the first time I felt a flicker of something other than despair. A spark of confusion, maybe even control. And then, I asked, my voice dry. I realized she lied to both of us. There was a long silence between us. I let it hang there. I wanted him to feel it. She's not with me, he added. Not anymore. I told her I couldn't be part of something so dishonest, and that if she didn't tell you the truth, I would. She never planned to, I said quietly. I know. Another pause. But that's not why I called, he said. It's not just about the affair. It's about the money. My heart kicked. What about it? She was going to disappear with it. All of it. You weren't just collateral damage, Brian. You were the funding. That real estate agent? That coastal house? It's already under contract. In her name. No co-buyer. No mention of me. That's when it really sank in. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She had planned my removal emotionally, legally, and financially. She told me she needed time, Elliot said. Said she wanted to figure things out. But the morning after I read your letter, I found out she'd already signed the closing documents. She was just waiting for the wire transfer to clear. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath since he dialed my number. I don't know what she told your lawyer, but she's not looking for a clean break. She's setting up a clean slate. And she's almost gone, Brian. I closed my eyes and felt the weight of every moment I'd ignored. The gut feelings I'd pushed down. The nights I sat on the couch while she typed furiously on her phone with a smile she never wore around me anymore. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I think you still care about her, he said. And I think she's counting on that to keep you from fighting back. He was right. She knew I was the kind of man who didn't argue, who didn't scream or retaliate, who mourned quietly and accepted loss like a dog waiting at the door. But something shifted inside me then. Not rage, not revenge. Something more focused. Clarity. I didn't want to hurt her, but I wasn't going to let her finish this alone. Thank you for calling, I said. Really? I'm sorry, he replied. For everything. When I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the motel mirror for a long time. I looked tired. Older. But not broken. Not completely. And then I opened my laptop. I pulled up the banking records. The separation draft. Her real estate contract. And I started building my own version of the truth. Not to destroy her, but to stop pretending I didn't matter. Next time, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. Because I'm not the kind of man who yells. But I am the kind of man who leaves proof. I didn't go back to the house. Not right away. Not to confront. Not to explain. I stayed in that motel for 2 more nights, surrounded by silence and peeling wallpaper, because I needed to remember what it felt like to exist without waiting for someone to look at me. I needed to feel my own weight again. And I did. I went through every document she had left behind. Financial statements, lawyer emails, property contracts she probably thought I'd never see. And I started gathering the pieces. Quietly. Legally. Precisely. First, I called the lawyer and told him I wouldn't be signing anything until a full review of our shared financial history was conducted. That I had concerns. That there were inconsistencies. He hesitated, but he listened. Then I contacted a friend of mine, Raymond. We hadn't spoken in years. He used to be in finance. Now he was doing consulting. I didn't give him all the details. Just what he needed to see the movement of our joint funds. Within 24 hours, he confirmed what Elliot had hinted at. Mabel had been quietly siphoning money out of our savings into accounts she controlled alone, then rerouting it through a consulting alias tied to her cover story. It was subtle, methodical, calculated, but not invisible. And that meant I had enough to stall the closing on the coastal property. Not out of spite. Not because I wanted to take it from her, but because I needed her to finally see me. Not as a passive footnote in her reinvention story, but as a man who had been there the whole time. Watching, giving, loving, and now, stepping away. I left her a message. It was short, direct. The transfer won't go through unless both parties approve the final statement. We'll discuss a fair agreement when I'm ready. Until then, I hope you find what you're looking for, but not with my silence. I didn't expect a response, but she showed up. At the motel, I saw her car in the lot before she knocked. She stood outside the door with that same neutral face, the one she used when she didn't know what version of herself to be. And when I opened it, she didn't say anything right away. Just looked at me. You read the checklist, she finally said. I read everything. Another pause. I didn't mean for it to happen this way, she added. I got scared. I nodded. Not because I forgave her, but because I believed her. Fear made people cruel in quiet ways. And she'd been drowning in it, just like I had. Only she chose escape, while I chose endurance. You left before telling the truth, I said. You lied with a smile. That hurts more than anything. She looked down. I know. I'm not here to ruin your life, Mabel. I continued. But I'm not disappearing to make it easier either. Her eyes welled, and she nodded. I don't deserve kindness after what I did. I'm not giving you kindness, I said. I'm giving you closure. She cried. Not a breakdown. Just two soft, real tears that fell without drama. And then she said the one thing I didn't expect. Thank you. I didn't reply. I closed the door. That was the last time I saw her. We finalized everything over email in the weeks that followed. Clean split. Equal assets. She got the house she wanted. I kept my savings. The coastal property? She let it go. Maybe it was too stained with guilt. Or maybe she just knew I'd always be tied to it, and she couldn't stand that. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I was free. Months later, I moved to a quiet place 2 towns over. Small apartment. A job at the local museum. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. People there ask questions when they care, not because they're suspicious. And I like that. I started cooking again. Painting, even. Things I hadn't done in years. I still sleep with the light on sometimes. Not because I'm afraid, but because the darkness doesn't feel like home yet. But it will. Last week, I saw a woman at the farmer's market looking at the same brand of tea Mabel used to drink. She smiled at me. Not a flirt. Just a soft, human smile. I smiled back. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. Not by her. By myself. That's the real ending. Not a dramatic confrontation or a broken glass moment. Just a quiet man, standing on his own, finally realizing he was always enough. Even if it took being forgotten to finally remember it.